It's 7:02, and I'm going to call the regular council meeting to order and ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Greg David,
Present.
Mr. Tyler Dean,
Here.
Miss Emily Hamburg,
Here.
Mr. Justin Smith,
Here.
and Mr. John Welch.
Present.
And you have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. This evening, we have Pastor Gary Green from Gospel Assembly Church to lead us in prayer. Mr. Green.
Thank you. Pleasure being with you. All those who like to join us, let's bow our heads together. Close our eyes and show reverence to the God of heaven. Heavenly Father, gathered here tonight in your presence, may we realize that all blessings come from you. You are the giver and author of life. We thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, and for what salvation can mean to each and every one of us through the blood that he spilled for our sins. We thank you, Lord, tonight for this council sitting here that you put in place. We thank you for our mayor, that you sat in that chair, dear God, through your divine grace. We pray, above all, in these challenging times, Lord, that this council and this mayor experience your divine presence and your divine intervention to work things out for the best of our community. May they open their spirit. May they open their heart up to the divine principle that all wisdom, all knowledge begins with the fear of the Lord. When we're pleasing you in our decisions, we're pleasing you in all that we do, something divine happens in our midst. Something supernatural can come and assist us in these challenges. You've given this council a great opportunity with blessings, but with those opportunities come great responsibilities. We pray that you intervene and you lead them and you guide them through these challenging but rewarding times. May they know that there is a power above all powers. Whether you're a person, a city, a metropolitan area, or whatever, that you can intervene. You can lead. You can wake them up at night and give them the answer. You can speak to every spirit that's open to you. So we place them in your hands for the betterment of every citizen of this community tonight. We pray this, all these blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, we have a proclamation I'd like to read. American Red Cross Month is March 2023. So the citizens of Bel Air, Kansas, greetings. Whereas March is American Red Cross Month, a special time to recognize and thank our heroes, those who volunteer, take life-saving courses, or provide financial donations to support an organization whose mission is to help those in need. And whereas we would like to remember those who help all of us here in Bel Air, Kansas, by giving their time to help their neighbor, and thank our heroes, our volunteers, class takers, and financial supporters who help us assist those in need. And whereas the city of Bel Air, the American Red Cross, works tirelessly through its employees and thousands of volunteers to help when disaster strikes, when someone needs life-saving blood, or the comfort of a helping hand. And whereas across the country, the American Red Cross responds to nearly 70,000 disasters a year and provides some 400,000 services to military members, veterans, and civilians, and collects and distributes about 40% of the nation's blood supply, and trains more than 7 million people in the first aid, water safety, and other life-saving skills every year. And whereas our community depends on the American Red Cross, which relies on donations of time, money, and blood to fulfill its humanitarian mission, the American Red Cross continues to offer help and comfort those in need. Now, therefore, I, Jim Benage, Mayor of the City of Bel Air, on behalf of the entire city, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as American Red Cross Month in Bel Air. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains minutes from the February 21st, 2023 council meeting, 4 fireworks permits, a final amendment to the city attorney's contract, and appointment of Gary Bro to the Gravel Roads Task Force. So just that we are aware, the address on item B, fireworks permit, may not be a good location. However, I understand there's a negotiation ongoing for that location, but to be aware, it may have to revisit this at a location at a later date. And does anybody need to remove or motion approve the consent agenda?
I read that too, and I noticed that address, and I kind of think we ought to, if there's any doubt, we should remove that from the consent agenda and deal with it in the future. And if somebody else gets here first, since theirs is up in flux, that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Okay, we'll remove item B from the consent agenda.
Not D.
B as a boy.
Okay, I'm sorry. Bad ears.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith,
I'll make a motion to approve the amended consent agenda and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Welch. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Ms. Kelly, do we need to take action on item B at all, or is it okay to just leave it?
Mr. Mayor, it's okay to leave it unless you want to pull it off and talk more about it, then it's fine to
Well,
leave
we
it.
removed it
It's
from the
approved.
consent agenda, but do we need to address it?
No, not
Okay,
uniquely.
all right, very good, thank you. Moving on to item 8, this discussion of appropriations ordinance. This reporting period included $200,000 for capital projects, meter installations totaling $48,000, and trash service of $39,000, and a CCUA expense of $260,000. So I want to commend Ted Henry. He did change the way this is presented so that we see the total being expended by vendor. I think this is a good change and more understandable. Of course, if we need to know what departments and accounts paid on what portion of these bills, that data is still available. So any questions for staff? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David,
a motion to accept the appropriations ordinance 23-04.
I'll second.
a motion by Mr. David and a second by Mr. Dean. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Moving on to citizens' concerns, I have one citizen who submitted a card to speak to council. So Mr. Lyle Ackerman, if you please approach the podium. I'm sure you know, we limit comments to 3 minutes. So if you could approach the podium, state your name and address, and make your comments.
Am I up?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I was preoccupied,
Oh,
thinking about what I might say. In any case,
Just-
Mr. Mayor,
just for your record, please state your name and address for the record. Okay.
All right.
So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, staff, thank you very much for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Lyle Ackerman. I reside at 4920 North Hillcrest in Bel Air. I won't tell you my age, but I will tell you I've lived in Bel Air for 54 years. So you can put a little math to that if you would like. My first item that I would like to speak to this evening is a big thank you to our outgoing city attorney Jackie. I have known Jackie since the moment she arrived here in Bel Air. And I would like to thank her for keeping the city of Bel Air on the straight and narrow over these past years. And I know from experience, it's easy sometimes for the city or the council to kind of veer off of that narrow path once in a while. And that's why we rely on our attorney to keep us on that straight and narrow. So congratulations on your new endeavor, and we do wish you well. Secondly, I would like to speak about gutters and streets in the city of Bel Air, and especially Pearson's First Edition. I drive that edition quite often, and although there have been a lot of barricades on many streets, I would like to commend the city for taking the initiative to improve those streets and those gutters. They were badly in need of the repair, and they're getting it, and they're much improved. And I guess I would like to say thanks to Kansas Paving, who is out there in inclement weather, working on those streets when some other areas of Bel Air look like they might have taken a cold day. And so anyway, thank you. And thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Move on to city council member reports. I didn't ask if anyone else in the audience would like to speak, but if so, okay, we'll move on to city council member reports. So I'll start with Mr. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few items to cover, so bear with me. First, I wanted to mention that City of Bel Air Park Survey is active. You can actually find it on the city's website. And in fact, I took it myself this week. So the survey will help inform us as a council and a governing body on developing a master plan for Bel Air Park, Central Park, and the Rec Center, among other things. So please take the time to provide input on what financial support and amenities you'd like to see on our current parks and help shape the future for Bel Air Rec Center, Bel Air Parks, and our playful city status. Next, I attended the Bel Air Chamber Lunch on March 1st. Our city manager, Ty, did a wonderful job presenting on our exciting opportunity with Integra. Also, just kind of covered that project along with the impact on the community. And Senator Moran's office was there and also showed their support for the project. It was a really good turnout, lots of interest, and a bright future for Bel Air. The next item, I attended the K254 corridor meeting. Again, Ty did a great job of presenting on that. Andrew Nave with Greater Wichita Partnership was in attendance. Integra was the topic. Talked a lot about that. Again, great turnout, lots of support for improvements along K254 as a result of future development. Also attended the CCUA meeting on February 23rd with everyone else, so I'll let somebody else touch on that a little bit more. Couple other things here. Last week, I did hear from a citizen voicing concerns for bus route changes as a result of connecting sidewalks at Isley. I requested city staff to check with USD 259 on potential impacts to future busing. It sounds like it is unlikely that it'll have any effect on the current school year and likely not even the following school year. Once the Woodlawn project wraps up, it sounds like that's when they would evaluate potential busing changes. I would just invite any parents that have children that are in the USD 259 school district to voice their concerns on potential impacts for future bus routes. Lisa Riveros, Director of Transportation for USD 259, is a correct contact for that, or Diane Albert, who is the District 1 Board of Education representative for Wichita Public Schools in Bel Air. And lastly, this weekend, Saturday, I plan to attend the SCAC meeting, which Park City will be hosting. That's all I have for my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember David.
Mr. Mayor, I also attended the K254 presentation on the 24th and echo Councilmember Dean's enthusiasm that was shown with a good turnout and good presentations. Of course, all brought on by the Integra announcement. Also attended the CCUA meeting on the 23rd, and also good to see that we're still in compliance despite the influent being above design parameters, and I'm glad to see that we're looking into doing something about that input. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I did attend the K254 Corridor Association meeting, which has been well covered now, and the CCUA meeting on February 23rd. The main item on that agenda was the City of Bel Air providing an update to the CCUA board on its progress regarding the audit reports that the City of Bel Air had completed. Jennifer Hill came and gave a presentation to the board about the findings and Bel Air's requested next steps in terms of adjusting the plant's design configuration and necessary changes to the structure of the entity before the city would be comfortable moving forward with the future expansion. I thought she did a nice job with that presentation, and there will be more discussions needed at future meetings as a result of that conversation. We also did adopt a minor change to the PTO policy, giving the plant manager some additional flexibility for new employees on PTO, and adopted the 2023 emergency water supply plan. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Welch.
I'm going to be different. I'm going to say a little bit tonight. Things are really happening in Bel Air. Lots of good things with the Integra announcement. That's going to be really exciting for Bel Air. I also went to the CCUA meeting, the K254 meeting, and I already donated blood this month, but anybody else that's eligible, I'd encourage you to donate if you can. It's such a wonderful thing, helps so many people out, especially in my case, it helps babies and cancer patients because I have a special type of blood, but that's just me. Any kind of blood is welcome. Please donate. Thank you.
Very good. Ms. Hamburg, last but not least.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, it's been a busy couple of weeks. Attended the Integra announcement on the 22nd. Attended CCUA, as already has been mentioned, on the 23rd, and also attended the 254 Corridor Association meeting on the 24th. The only other thing I wanted to mention was I attended the Sunrise Christian Academy's performance of Anastasia Saturday night, and it was truly wonderful. I think we've all been subjected to maybe school plays where you're looking at the clock. It was impressive, truly. If you've never checked it out, go see one of their shows. That was my first, and it will not be my last. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to Mayor's report. So first of all, I understand Councilmember Greg David had a birthday last week, and Council President Smith has a birthday coming up this next week. So happy birthday to both. We are glad that you were here to help us in the direction of the City of Bel Air. Sedgwick County Association of Cities, as Mr. Dean had spoken, will be having a meeting at this coming Saturday, March 11th. And please advise Laura Rainwater if you plan to attend. Speaking of Laura Rainwater, I don't know if you've heard that Scott Schwab, our Kansas Secretary of State, has appointed Laura as the Sedgwick County Election Commissioner. So Laura has been a great help in keeping K254 Corridor Association and the Sedgwick County Association of Cities well organized. Congratulations to Ms. Rainwater. On Thursday, the February 23rd, I also attended the Chisholm Creek Utility Authority Board, and I attended almost all the other meetings that people mentioned here. I won't go back through all those, but just okay. We did approve an RFP for a new SCADA for the water system management for the water treatment plant. We did authorize utility manager to move forward with proposing change orders for the water treatment expansion. So those are in work. I also met with Mayor Linner of Park City on Friday the 24th to work hammering a go-forward agreement between Bel Air and Park City concerning CCUA. An exact form of that agreement is not determined, but negotiations will continue. On March 3rd, my wife and I also attended the Sunrise Christian Academy rendition of Anastasia, and it was really, truly well done. Surprise musical play, which my wife does not like, but that's fine. We did enjoy this one. Okay, always glad such talent and students in the Bel Air schools. So please continue to patronize Los Compas and Dollar General. Those two businesses continue to be impacted by the woodlawn construction, and that will still be going on till the summer. So I now ask our city attorney for her final report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The legislative activity is ongoing. Nothing really that raises above the radar that we've been seeing. Some of our bills are still there. Definitely concerned about that 3-mile zone of influence. I will have a specific report related to the retaining wall later on in the program as we get to that item. And finally, I would say, I would not reduce my time here to a speech, but rather the contacts and relationships and partnerships and things we've been able to get done. So I'll keep it short and just say that I have observed this group of elected officials be deliberative, honorable, and truly concerned about the interests of the people of Bel Air. And I have relished in the opportunity to advocate for those interests and for the residents of Bel Air alongside a team of the best professionals in local government, Ty Lasher, and the entire staff. And I cannot say enough about my admiration for this city and the respect that I have for all of you and the staff. And I will continue to be a fan and a supporter of Bel Air, Kansas. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lasher, from City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say publicly that, Jackie has sat by me for 5-6 years, and we've spent hours and hours together, and I've truly enjoyed that, and I'm going to miss her. And proud of her. I appreciate her family's here, and I appreciate them allowing her to spend her evenings with us. We have a lot of fun sometimes, but I wish her well, and I know we're all going to miss her. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, moving on to ordinance, resolutions, and final actions. So as everyone has heard, Integra Technologies has selected Bel Air as their new home for a 1 million square foot facility and world headquarters. They plan to invest nearly $2 billion, that's with a B, not an M or T, and hire roughly 2,500 employees in phase 1. Phase 2 will double those numbers. So our city manager has been working very closely with Brett Robinson, Integra's CEO, to make this happen. Mr. Robinson is here tonight, and I would like to invite him to the podium to share his vision for Integra for the next 6 months to 35 years in Bel Air. Our city manager can answer any questions related to the incentives agreement, IRB, LOI, or any other items related to this project. Mr. Robinson, welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And most important, thank you for your partnership and your support. With the state of Kansas naming Integra the 2023 Apex project, and today your leadership and support, we're ready to bring our 40 years of history and experience to a new level in Bel Air. A project of this size and scope takes a lot of work among a lot of people and partners. Mayor Benaj, Bel Air City Council, Ty, staff, thank you for all your hard work on this very complex project. Your support for the overall project is critical, and we're also very excited about the support to ensure that we have the best, most robust workforce outreach and training plan. Your action tonight will take those efforts to a new level for everyone in the region. I also want to recognize Andrew Nave with Greater Wichita Partnership, Keith Lawing and the Workforce Alliance team, so many others, because it really does take all of us working together to pull off a project like this. We often get asked how long we plan to stay in Kansas, and by association, Bel Air. I'll start by saying first, Kansas is where we got our start. It's our home. We started here 40 years ago as part of NCR Corporation. We moved into the building we currently occupy on Rock Road 39 years ago. So the fact is, these buildings take a lot of money to construct and even more money to facilitate as a semiconductor manufacturing building. That cost mandates that the new building design be developed with longevity in mind. The internal clean room design comprehends that as technology changes, our required process accuracy and clean room requirements will increase and thereby necessitate change. When we were in our design meetings for the building, The criteria used was to require materials and design elements, excuse me, to make the facility as usable 50 years from now as it is today. So the short answer on how long we plan to stay is a long time. We sincerely hope that your work here tonight is the beginning of a very long partnership. And in closing, on behalf of the hundreds of employee owners of Integra and the thousands more to come, we thank you for all your hard work and partnership. And I'm happy to take any questions. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments. And just a comment about the NCR building. I remember when that building was built and the roads were all dirt going up there because I delivered parts to that building. So, yeah, so it's been there for a good long time, and this is just another chapter in the same story. So that's great. Very good. Thank you. There is, this item is a motion to accept the incentive agreement between the City of Bel Air and Integra Technologies.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith,
I'd like to make a motion to accept an incentive agreement between the City of Bel Air, Kansas and Integra Technologies and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Welch. Any discussion? Hearing none, I think this is a great thing for Bel Air and a great thing for the region. So it's just fantastic all the way around. Everybody has really worked a fantastic project with Workforce Alliance, Wichita Tech, that Wichita State University. Everybody has just done a fantastic job. So I want to commend everybody. So having said that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item B is related to this. In order for Integra to move forward, they must receive federal CHIPS funding. And part of the application requires a letter of support and resolution of support. This item and item C accomplish that. Are there any questions of Mr. Robertson or Mr. Lasher? If there are
Mr.
none,
Mayor?
I'll entertain a motion. Mr.
I'll motion to
David.
approve a letter of support for Integra Technologies CHIPS for American Incentives proposal and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. David, a second by Mr. Dean. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. And item C is related, is consider a resolution of support of Integra Technologies CHIPS for America incentive proposal.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dean,
I'll motion to approve a resolution of support for Integra Technologies CHIPS for American Incentives proposal and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
motion by Mr. Dean, a second by Mr. Welch. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. And then item D is consideration of letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds. So as we do with most new business constructions, the city issues IRBs to aid in funding the facility. Including in the IRB are certain incentives. Due to the size and investment of Integra, they qualify for a 10-year, 100% property tax abatement. So Mr. Kevin Cowan with Gilmore and Bell is here to answer any questions. It's a big deal. So.
Yeah, it's a big deal, but we've all been talking about it for weeks behind
Yeah.
closed doors. So I think it'd be amazing if we had a question at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dean.
I do think it'd be worth at least discussing how this is a little bit different in nature than probably some of our previous IRBs, but somewhat similar to what we issued and approved. I think it was last month where there was multiple buildings involved and multiple phases to IRB. Can you kind of express some of that detail for the public to understand?
Yeah, that is a good point. Typically, your letter of intent is going to be shorter term and something is very imminent in terms of a project proceeding. And so the letter would have an effective date that's perhaps a year, perhaps 2 years. And this one has an effective date that extends to December 31st of 2030. And the thought is to contemplate not only phase one of the contemplated project, but also phase two. And so we wanted to make sure that was covered. It is unusual, but as you point out, just last month, similar long-term sort of development and wanting to make the commitment to all of the phases that are potentially planned, so the company could rely on that. And that's really what this is, to make the letter of intent be something that the company can rely on, not only for phase one, as we're calling it, but hopefully phase two as well in the next 7 years.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith,
I'd like to make a motion to approve a letter of intent to issue industrial revenue bonds for Integra Technologies, Inc., and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
motion for Mr. Smith and second by Ms. Hamburg. Any additional questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. So item E is a special presentation in recess. So I think we do the presentation and then call for the recess. So, all right, very good. So Jackie, if you would approach the podium with me. Appreciate it. So, like we said a month ago, we did not want to pass this motion to accept your resignation, but we are sorry to you. You've been a great help to the city. We appreciate your dedication. You're one of the best attorneys I've ever worked with, and I've worked with several in my career, and I really do appreciate your support. And I understand you're going to Derby, and that's a great opportunity for you, a great career move. So congratulations. And on behalf of the city, I give you this plaque. Okay. Okay. So I will entertain a motion for a 15-minute recess.
I'll make a motion for 15-minute recess.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're in recess for 15 minutes. I believe there's some refreshments out in
I guess let me,
We're on? All right, well, thank you. We had good recess and good to visit with everybody. So now we need to call the meeting back to order, and we'll move on to item F. So this is current, considering a comprehensive development plan. So our current comprehensive development plan was adopted in 2014. The state statutes require the plan be updated periodically. This plan serves as a reference point for developers, planning commission, staff, and city council related to growth. It is time to update the plan, and both the planning commission and the staff are recommending a professional firm complete this task. Staff requested quotes from 3 firms that have provided plans for other local cities. So at their February meeting, the planning commission reviewed the proposals and their work. After much discussion, staff and planning commission felt PEC would be the best fit and are recommending them for the council approval. Our planning and development director, Jay Cook, is here to go over the proposal and answer any questions. And I do have some questions for, there you are. Yeah, you were over there, but very good. So a couple months ago, a citizen, Rebecca Ann Armstrong, came to the city and talked about some things that are, I think, appropriate to address, but I don't know if it's appropriate for this to address it. So it's really just a question whether they should be. So some of her concerns were about trees being removed during developments that could be left, retained, about appropriate parks. In fact, one time we had a platting where it had no parks. I actually voted against the platting because it had no parks. And I'd like to see what we can do. If it's not in this area, then we'll find the right area to do that. But I just wanted to bring those up. I think those are important things that we consider, that we help with those kind of things in the city. So then my other question, and I'll let you, then I'll shut up. I don't see a due date on this project, and maybe I overlooked it, but I didn't see one. And with the major development of Integra coming, I think we needed this like yesterday.
Yeah. So PEC didn't give an expressed calendar of how they do it, but it's a 3 to 4 month turnaround from my conversations with Ms. Zimmerman over at PEC. So it'll be as quickly as they can, but I'm in agreement with you. We needed it yesterday.
Okay.
And to your other thing, the good thing about PEC is there's a lot of citizen involvement that they bring in. This is required to have citizen input. So Ms. Armstrong's and other people's opinions will definitely be noted and put into the plan.
Okay, very good. Well, I don't want to take everybody else's thunder. So if you got questions for Mr. Cook?
Mr. Mayor, I did appreciate your question on the due date. I think that's a really good call out. I think any engagement like this, it would be ideal if the timeline was laid out and there were clear commitments so that everyone's clear on what the expectations are. Would it be appropriate to get that added into our agreement?
I definitely can reach out and get a more solid time frame. If you looked at their proposal, there are 10 meetings that they do. They spread those out. There'll be a planning commission meeting. So there are some hindrances to a quick turnaround, and then some things that we can obviously schedule special meetings with the planning commission and the like. But that is definitely something, if you're interested, I can reach out and find out for sure.
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Hamburg.
Mr. Cook, I know it's in our packet, but just for the benefit of the public, can you just go over what the pros are for having PEC, even though they're not the lowest bid?
So I wanted to find a couple of different cities with Multi-Studio, a smaller city, similar to ours, as far as population goes, and then a big one that was done by RDG and Derby, and PEC is the middle ground. The benefit of PEC is they're already doing infrastructure studies in Bel Air. They're doing water sewer studies in Bel Air. They're here. We do a lot of work with them, and they're local. Multi-Studio is based out of Kansas City, and while I think they would do a fantastic job, and I liked their price, I do like to keep things in the area. And then RDG, I'm not sure where they're based out of, but they do a fantastic product. If you looked at Derby's comp plan, but it's obviously just a little too pricey, in my opinion, for what we're getting. And I'm sure PEC will be a part of a lot of the engineering that goes into phasing in all the new stuff we're doing with Integra and the like. So.
Thank you. So, Ms. Kelly, maybe this is a question that you could answer. Is it appropriate for us to say, hey, we would accept this with a time frame of report no later than July 31st? I don't know. I'm just spitballing dates. I don't know what's an appropriate date, but would that be an appropriate way we could accept this proposal?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was going to actually say a no later than date would be appropriate. However, I think that we'd have to take into consideration the conversations that Mr. Cook has had, setting those expectations and ensure that the no later than date matches the expectations that they had when they proposed the bid. So you could absolutely do that.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Dean.
It looks like, looking over the other proposals, I'm not going to call out the names specifically, but some of the other proposals did include kind of a tentative schedule, and one of them shows starting in January, which obviously that's kind of just on a calendar year. They're trying to show you how many months is it going to take. They start in January and finish in July in their process. That's not what PEC has presented, but I would be more concerned of when they could get started, because my guess is it's just we're down the list a little bit probably. So yeah, I would like clarification on when they could start and when it would, I guess more importantly, when it would finish. But that my worry is they probably can't get started right away. So I also would like that clarification, knowing that it's kind of important to have this assessment done at a key time when we know a lot is about to start happening. So thank you.
And I think that PEC has a lot of different divisions, and they have certified planners that do most of the work on this. So I think that giving them the go, I don't think it'll be a long wait to get them started. I think it'll be pretty, but I can obviously find that out, and I'd be happy to do it.
Would it be your preference that we approve it with contingent upon completion date no later than X, or would you like to ask them for clarification first?
I would leave that ball in your court. I don't mind one bit. I mean, we can approve it, but I don't know a good date to say due by. So that's why I would say we can put it till 2 weeks from now. I can bring it back and give you the information that I find out if you would like that. That way you can be a lot more sure in what we're doing, and a start date and an end date.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Unless you had a date that you were wanting to throw out, that'd be my preference.
Okay. I don't think I have the slightest idea of how much work they put into it to be able to give you a date. I would hope July or August, especially as that's some good dates for Integra coming in as well. So I mean, I think it'll all line up pretty well no matter what, but I can definitely find that out.
Mr. Mayor, to be clear, if it were tabled without action on any of them, you would want Mr. Cook to get start and end dates from all three organizations, just to keep the playing field as open as possible.
Thank you.
Same question.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
I'll make a motion to table item F.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Smith to table, a second by Mr. David. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This motion is tabled pending timeline information. All right, move on to item G. This is considering change order from Pearson's Construction. This item was tabled at the last council meeting to allow staff to gather more information. Our city engineer, Ann Stevens, is here to share additional details and answer questions. Ms. Stevens.
Yes, so per council's request, we did reach out to the homeowner on the south side of the road. His main concern was saving his tree. So in order to save his tree, we need to put the retaining wall in. This was expressed to the property owner, and the property owner was agreeable to that. He did understand that the necessity of the wall to save the tree, because if we just graded it out, the tree will likely die. So both property owners are in agreement for the wall. I had intended to go out and get some pictures of the smaller retaining block wall. There is one off of Central at St. Cloud Place. I believe it is kind of 127th to 143rd, maybe a mile further back. If council would like to drive by that at any time, there are portions of that wall. There's just kind of intermittent portions where the blocks are pushed out. There's none that are missing yet, but it does look very bad. It's just not a wall that we want. It does had some additional maintenance for property owners or for the city. So the wall that Jay is proposing is a bigger block that is not going to be easily moved, easily pushed out. It's going to be much less maintenance for the city and the property owners, however that ends up turning out. So that would be the recommendation. I know Ms. Kelly has done some additional research and had some more to present to council tonight.
About how tall is this wall? It looks like about 2 to 3 feet, but I'm looking at pictures, so I know that can be deceiving.
Yeah, I believe it's about 1.5 to 2 feet. 2 feet.
2 feet? Okay. Thank you. Ms. Kelly.
So the issue here came down to where a city has a temporary easement and is really driving control of the property, and the city is offering to put in a retaining wall. Whose responsibility is it to maintain that into perpetuity? And the answer is that it is the homeowner's property for a couple reasons. One, because the temporary easement grants the city the ability to make improvements, including the installation of such things as a retaining wall. However, that doesn't assume those improvements are for the benefit of the city. So you have to analyze, is this situation ultimately for the benefit of the city? And based on the engineer's report, there were 2 reasons for installing the retaining wall. One was to ensure that the grading would be right and erosion control wouldn't be an issue, which is typically property owner's problem or responsibility. It's a property owner's responsibility to ensure that erosion does not come off the property. And 2, for the benefit of the property owner to be able to maintain tree roots and a flagpole. So because of those reasons, the entire benefit is essentially for the property owner. There's some minor benefits that go to the city, like the sidewalk debris would be kept clean and it would be safer with a retaining wall rather than a grading of a slope. So my conclusion is that this is wholly the responsibility of the property owners based on statutes defining what the benefit of a retaining wall should be. And I'll provide the engineer a written report to keep in a file for whenever that maintenance comes up, maybe in 20 or 30 years, the city can provide that property owner that notice of responsibility. And the property owner also, it also weighed into the fact that the property owner requested something be done that would allow them to keep their property as is.
Would it be appropriate, just to keep the communication clear, to send a letter to the property owners to that effect from the city?
Yes, we can do that.
So that's clearly understood.
Right.
And then they don't come back 3 years from now and say, well, this is doing whatever. And well, it shouldn't happen in 2 or 3 years, but sometime in the future.
Have they been informed of this is my first question, that it would be their responsibility to maintain it?
I do not know. They have not been informed that there was never any discussion regarding maintenance of the wall. It was just letting them know that we're going to be putting it in here and then kind of getting their buy-in. But with Ms. Kelly's kind of research, it doesn't seem like there's any really wiggle room because they'd be responsible for maintaining the property anyway.
Yeah, so the question now becomes, do they want to take on that responsibility, or do they want to change their mind about their trees and their flagpole?
They were very adamant about the tree and the flagpole. And so with the type of wall that we're putting in, I don't foresee maintenance in like at least 30 to 50 years. So it's going to be a quality wall. It's not something that's going to be tipping over. It's not something to have bricks poking out. So their interest was in maintaining their property as is with the flagpole and the trees.
Can we make a motion on this contingent on the property owner signing some document that they understand that they're responsible for the ongoing maintenance? So that they could change their mind before we install it?
The issue there, I think, is then we have the right to do this without the property owner weighing in, unless we decide we want to give some of that right away. And if we have the property owner sign, that's kind of more of a mutual agreement. I guess my question would be, is there another way to do this that would be just as effective?
Well, we've been told we could grade it, but it would probably kill the trees, and I don't know exactly what it would do to the flagpole, but maybe just resetting the flagpole would be easier than building a retaining wall is what I'm wondering.
Resetting the flagpole would require an additional easement to get on that property owner's property to remove and replace. But the harm would be potentially, if we grade it up to it, I can see the property owner coming back, and if we have a wet year and something happens to the flagpole, it starts to lean, they're going to come back on the city. Well, you were in this area, you were doing this, even though we may not have been even close. You know, that's always something that comes up with improvement projects. Well, you caused this damage. Well, no, I really didn't.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
with the wall being constructed on the temporary easement that then becomes the citizen's property again, if they should choose to not maintain the wall in the future and or have it removed, is that their option?
Yeah, at that point in the city can come in and say, as long as, if the retaining wall is gone, so long as the erosion is managed and controlled in some way, there's no nuisance. And so long as obviously the maintenance of the property, the wall doesn't become dilapidated or whatnot, they would be allowed to maintain that property in another way, if they could just keep the dirt from going onto the city property.
Mr. Mayor, I have another question. With it being built with our project, how would warranty work? Like, if say this wall was installed incorrectly, it was accepted as the job, and then 2 years from now it does fail, and it shouldn't have in 2 years. How does that play into the property's owner versus our project and contractors' expectations of what I'm a little worried about that. I'm not worried about the 35 years. I'm worried about next year there's an issue because somebody didn't install it properly. Who's on the hook?
So because this is a KDOT project, it does not have a warranty. But we do have the oversight of Garver and their inspection team out there. They will be inspecting this. If they see something that is not being installed properly, they will speak up and require that be fixed. So it is installed per the specifications, per requirements. I believe KDOT has retaining wall requirements.
Well, they do. And then again, the style of walls just being larger blocks, there's really, some of the smaller blocks, they can get tiebacks and there can be things that go wrong. This is just little larger natural cut limestone that'll just set in place. It's really hard to mess it up even installing it.
And you're not worried about it because of the small installation not being.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
But this, just correct me if I remember this correctly, this will have a foundation under this stone, right? Is that a correct statement?
It's its own foundation. It's
Its
2
own
feet high.
foundation.
There's like a foot under the ground that it's
Okay.
set on.
Its
So it's
own-
not just going to flop around on the surface.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification. So what I would like to suggest, Ms. Kelly draft a letter for my signature or the city manager's signature, I'm okay with either one, to these homeowners outlining the maintenance requirements of well, not the specific how you maintain it, but the maintenance responsibility there. That is assuming we pass this tonight.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, so that letter would be more of a heads up type thing. It's not going to require them to sign. It's just here's
Yeah.
the parameters of our.
It's informing them
Yep.
of that
Just to clarify.
responsibility so that it's clearly stated in
Yep.
writing so that they understand. And they don't come back later and say, well, they had some other understanding or assumption.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Hamburg.
I can appreciate where Councilmember Welch is coming, where I know we've kicked this down the road already, but if it's not time sensitive, I just assume make sure they're on the same page with the maintenance agreement in case that would happen to change their decision, if that's not going to create a problem with the project, to give them a heads up. And then once we get the okay from them, approve it.
I've not looked at the details of the quote that you have for it, but is there a time limit on that quote? Most have them, so.
I am not seeing a time limit on the quote that was provided. However, there's, as you said, prices change. They're not locked in forever. This was provided to us with the unwritten assumption for Ms. Kelly's benefit that it would be acted on within short order. We've already delayed it by 2 weeks, delaying it another 2 weeks. I'm not sure where construction prices will go. And I'm not sure what sort of guarantees they've made to their subs.
Sounds like we have two options. We can wait another 2 weeks and hope the contractors will abide by the pricing that they've submitted, or we can and find out if there can be a mutual understanding, or we can send a letter and just advise them of basically what the law tells us.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
the way that I'm thinking about this is we now have clarity on kind of the ownership of the wall and how it's going to be maintained. The homeowners want it for the reasons that were outlined above. It makes sense for us to provide that as a way to allow them to continue using their property in a way that they have in the past. And knowing that they'll have the option to remove the wall in the future if they want to maintain it differently. I think I'm comfortable moving forward with it, given that it's an expected really long life product and that they have optionality to not maintain it in the future and instead accomplish those same goals with different gradings or other methods. I think it'd be my preference to just move forward with it and make sure the expectations are clear.
I just don't want to spend $40,000 if they're not going to be happy with it. It seems like we'd be forcing it on them. And that's why I asked, can we approve this contingent on the sign off from the homeowners? And then if, you can go to them tomorrow. If they say, yeah, that's great, then we can chug on down the road. And if they say no, then we'll tell them, well, we're going to have to grade it and you'll take whatever happens.
Yeah, if grading achieves like a really good engineering solution, then that could be an option. I would recommend that instead of having the homeowners, you can have the property owners sign off, but then we need to file it with the land. So that way this agreement, which doesn't have to be an agreement, it can be, the law is on your side, but
We could just put it in, yeah.
you'd have to file it with the Register of Deeds and it would go with the property from owner to owner. And that would be, it's a little more risky to do it that way, but you could file it, file the notice of maintenance or the agreement with the
The one thing I
County
know,
Register of
the
Deeds.
one thing I know about the tree is there's no option here. The tree either goes or the wall has to go up there because it's already exposed. And that needs to be resolved. I didn't go measure it. I just looked at it, but I'm going to say it's probably got roots that high exposed right now. And if you don't put a wall in there, it's going.
But how far is the tree from the wall? Cutting some roots isn't in and of itself bad.
No, I'm not saying that, but you can't, if you don't put the wall in, the tree has to come out because that's its stable base.
Well, that's why I'm saying how far is the tree from where we would be grading, because trees grow on slopes all the time. It doesn't have to be on a flat surface.
It's probably 5 to 10 feet. I have not measured it
So
personally.
it's right close.
It's very close.
If it was 20 feet or so, I'd say we're wasting time and we should just grade it.
Yeah, no, it's very close.
It's close.
Okay.
I would also add, just from kind of my perspective, there really are not other situations. We do work in the right of way all the time. There's really not another situation. We'll put in a ditch, put in culverts, put in other things where we ask the property owner's permission, where we ask the property owner to sign off. I hear what you're saying, Mr. Welch, and I understand that. But I was thinking kind of in a broader perspective, this is a unique situation, but we don't replicate it in other situations.
Okay. I don't have a problem with doing this on the tree side. I'm just thinking more about the flagpole situation. But given how close the trees are, I wasn't aware of that. I hadn't actually gone and physically looked.
Mr. Mayor, the way I'm thinking about this now a little bit is are we thinking, is this $38,000 worth saving a tree and a flagpole? Is it, or is the owner really need to be given the option of planting a new tree, putting in a new flagpole versus a wall? If a grading option is actually feasible, which sounds like it maybe is, but I don't know that for a fact. But I know that's kind of muddying the waters a little bit, but I really think that tells me that we need to go back to the owner, not necessarily get their agreement or signature, but tell them about the options available. And where I'm coming from on that is, I know it's a special situation. I get that, but we are also setting ourselves up a little bit for every time we do a project. If there's this little thing here or this little thing there, having to put in a retaining wall when maybe a better option is grading it. So I'm trying to come at it from a position of being sensitive to the property owner, but also trying to understand, is it just a better idea to plant a new tree instead of spend $38,000 to save this tree? And I'm not trying to be insensitive. I'm just trying to look at the different options available. So for that, I think I kind of don't want to approve. I want to table and see if we can visit with the owner about the different options, because that could be in the best interest of both the city and the property owner.
It's a mature tree and it has several $1,000s worth of value probably for each tree. But since it is also close to where we're doing this and we're disturbing so many roots, it may die anyway.
Right.
So,
Or Mr. Mayor,
Or with the
Mr. Smith?
to our conversation last time, my thoughts were predicated on the assumption that the grading was going to be an unpalatable solution. It was my understanding that it could be graded, but it's not grading that any reasonable person would want in their front yard.
That is correct. The option of smoothing out the grading would take additional temporary construction easement,
Right.
which we would have to, with Ms. Kelly leaving us, we'd have to hire somebody to assist us with that. We would have to pay for the temporary construction easement, which would probably cost more now than it did back then, especially knowing that we would be relocating the flagpole, resetting the flagpole, possibly buying a new tree of whatever size is agreed to. So your costs kind of in the long term, if we look forward to all of these additional costs with, if you graded the right of way out, so it was a more gentle slope. And, I've had people say that a 4-to-1 is not gentle enough slope. They want an 8-to-1. They have a very gentle slope, very shallow slope in their yard right now. Anything above that they may come back and say is too steep. So are we going to be grading all the way back to the front of the yard or to the front of their house? And then how do we address that? Are we putting in sod? Are we seeding? There's a lot of complications, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I understand looking at the additional options. They have been thought through, maybe not in public, but kind of at this time for expediency and moving through the project. We're either grading it steeply or we're putting the wall in. That's kind of where we're at. Council can certainly direct us to go back and talk to the property owners with some property, I guess, real estate assistance, for lack of a better term, to, kind of work through those temporary construction easements. Right now, with everything that's going on. I certainly don't have the time to lead that up, but I'm available to help whomever we could hire to do that. But that's going to take a couple months. That's not going to take a week or 2 weeks.
Do we have any liability if those trees die anyway? Or blow over or any other thing that could happen?
We're not on the property that the trees are on. So there would have to be evidence that what we did was the direct proximate cause of the tree dying, which is a litigation. I don't, and because we're doing something for the public good, we'd probably be okay, but it's not something that I can guarantee we don't have liability on. But if we're acting in good faith and we're trying to stay away from the root system, we might be okay.
And for those concerned, there is a picture of that tree and that property on page 66 of your packet.
Yes,
It is
there is.
the bottom picture.
So I personally am in favor, although I don't get to vote on this, I'm personally in favor of approving this with us sending up the letter that we would ask Ms. Kelly to draft before she leaves on Thursday.
Final
Mr. Mayor.
task.
Mr. Smith?
I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the change order request from Pearson Construction in the amount of $38,556 for retaining walls in the northeast and southeast corners of Woodlawn and Odessa, and also to send a letter to those property owners and authorize the mayor to sign all related documents.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. David. Any additional discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate Ms. Stevens' discussion. In weighing all this, we're up against the risk of if something fails or they want the retaining wall. We've had this discussion. I'm going to go ahead and support this because we don't have a crystal ball, but this seems like the best option.
Mr. Mayor, I also appreciate Ann for clarifying that you really have exhausted all the options and that truly believe this is the best option and that the property owner does want it. So that for that reason, I will be supporting it as well.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Item H, so this is needing a water line moved. So during the installation of storm sewer pipe on the west side of Woodlawn, Dollinger discovered a conflict with the city's 18-inch water main. After reviewing the situation, engineers felt the best way to remediate the conflict is to lower the water line underneath the proposed storm sewer pipe. So our city engineer and Jay Engelmeyer from MKEC are here to discuss this issue and answer questions. So you're on.
Okay. So we are installing a 36-inch storm sewer pipe that will help carry the stormwater drainage from Woodlawn underground. As the mayor said, as they were getting ready to install that pipe, they did encounter our 18-inch water main, which was basically smack dab in the middle of that 36-inch. So there's no sneaking above, sneaking below. The storm sewer line is very elevation sensitive. There's no scooching it up or scooching it down, especially not by 1.5 to 2 feet to clear the water line. This was not caught during the initial design of the water and sewer adjustments that we had 2 years ago. It was just an error in omission that got made. It would have been necessity anyway to lower the line had it been caught originally. So it is definitely an eligible project cost. In talking with Jay and MKEC, he does admit that, but they are willing to participate in that cost. That cost will be, I haven't had time to sit down and kind of figure out what I think the cost differential would have been with what would the cost of benefit had been installed 2 years ago with that project versus what the cost is that they're asking now.
So this project is, that section of this project is stopped until this is resolved, right?
That is correct.
And you just got this last week, late last week, is that correct?
Yes, they are moving forward. Donlinger is still able to progress on installing other storm sewer pipe and other inlets. It is fairly time sensitive, but the entirety of work has not stopped because they're able to work in other areas. Once this is approved tonight, they will come back and get this installed. We did pull it out of the Woodlawn KDOT project portion. KDOT does require a Buy American, Build American, which basically means that all of your fittings, pipe, etc., need to be made in America, which, while I love American, it does jack the prices up a little bit. So being able to pull this out, they were able to source it locally and our prices are less. So we did discuss this with KDOT. KDOT was okay with us pulling it out. It's not something that we would normally do, but just in the interest of expediency, the non-Buy American is available in 1 to 2 weeks, where the American-made product is more like 12 weeks. So that is a huge difference. That's another reason kind of why we've pulled it out and we're before you tonight with a little bit of urgency.
But the other side to add to that, if we had done this when we did all the other sewer or water line utility work, it wouldn't have been under the KDOT auspices anyway.
That is correct.
Okay, so it wouldn't have been, originally it would not have been under their contract because
That is-
it's pre-work you have to do before they'll let the contract, right?
That is correct.
Correct. Okay, so it really is bringing us back to what should have been done 2 years ago.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Exactly. And Mr. David had emailed me, I believe it was Monday, asking some questions on the quantity of 45-degree bends. I emailed Don Linger and have not received any response back from them. I was out of the office all day today at training, but I can assure council that we will be watching and we will be measuring what gets put into the ground, and the council will not be paying for anything that is not put into the ground.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Smith.
So it sounds like this is an important item that's stopping our progress. Is it blocking the progress on the controlling item such that we're not currently charging working days?
No.
Okay.
No, the current controlling item of work is the intersection at 45th and Woodlawn, and they are able to continue working on that.
So the risk you get here is that if you don't act on this tonight, you're looking at maybe 2 weeks to act on it. And by that time, they may need to be moving along on this. And
I'm not at all suggesting we wouldn't act on it. I just wanted to know if if we're already in a position of not charging working days.
Right. So what I'd like to suggest is that maybe we approve this with a proviso that Ms. Stevens worked out an agreement with MKEC on cost sharing of this, which she already said she was going to do anyway, right?
Right.
Mr. Mayor,
I
I am kind of curious with Jay, like, where do you think this was missed? Do you think it was just when you guys did surveying originally, or where would have it been missed in the process?
It wasn't due to surveying. It was a plan error. It was
Gotcha.
it responsible. It falls on me at the very end. It was something we should have quality controlled. It should have not happened, and I apologize that it happened. It's something I don't like to come here and tell you about, but
Sure.
it did.
Sounds good.
And we're willing to pay our whatever the piece, the portion that's additional now than it would have been 2 years ago. And I do recognize there's a lot of cost of living, a lot of inflation cost extra. So it's not going to be necessarily insignificant that portion of MKEC is going to pay.
Sure. So you're basically suggesting the delta, like,
Yeah.
that's the cost.
And I want Don Linger to participate. And I didn't want to go to Don Linger and say, what do you think it's going to be? I think Ann needs to work on that with Don Linger, and I'll provide support wherever I need to.
Well, we appreciate your willingness to do that. We all make mistakes. If we wouldn't be here, right? So I appreciate your willing to help us out. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, a question for our attorney. Do we need to actually have anything in our motion about the conversations that Bel Air and MKEC will have about the cost sharing, or will that be dealt with separately?
I don't think it would hurt in the best interest of the council. I think preserving that in the motion would be a good idea.
Should we say not to exceed instead of just of the amount?
Was this a firm fixed price quote?
It was, they'd given us a breakdown of all the work, so it can be pulled out. So, and a not to exceed would be fine.
Okay.
Well, I'm just thinking that would allow for somebody else to kick in some money instead of us.
Yeah. Yeah, they gave us a total amount, but they also gave us a breakdown. So
Yeah, just
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Smith,
I'll make a motion to approve the quote from Donlinger Construction and an amount not to exceed $44,500 for lowering the 18-inch water line and plugging the 6-inch water line at 45th and Woodlawn, and to work with MKEC on an appropriate cost sharing agreement and authorize the mayor to sign all related documents.
I'll second that.
a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Welch. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, work
Yes.
with MKEC on an appropriate
Cost share.
cost sharing. Who determines appropriate? To have the engineer determine that, or the manager? Whose definition of appropriate, I think, should be captured in the motion.
So I would want to divert that to either our city engineer or our city manager.
Yeah, the manager.
Okay. Very good. So is that an amendment to the motion?
Yeah.
I'll second the amendment.
Okay, just make some quick notes. Okay. Any additional questions or discussion? So the motion I have, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it is to accept the price with Dollinger and with providing a cost share agreement with MKEC as determined by the city manager. So I'm sure he's going to lean heavily on you, yeah, but he's going to make the final call for the city. Okay. Here, if that's agreeable with everybody, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item I, this is consent agreement for annexation. So this parcel being considered for annexation is less than 20 acres and completely surrounded by Bel Air, by the city of Bel Air. So Kansas statute allows for city to annex parcels that meet these requirements. However, there is a process that must be undertaken for unilateral annexation. Consent to annex is much easier, and the property owner led. So the owner of this parcel is requesting to be
Mr. Mayor, I'm
annexed.
sorry, if I can interrupt you
Yes.
rudely. The property owner has not signed the consent annexation as of this point.
I
We
see.
anticipated it. So if I may, I would recommend that this item be tabled and the city get legal consultation on whether it's appropriate to pursue a consent annexation or to pursue a unilateral annexation in this case, as recommended by an attorney in the next 30 days or so.
Okay, all right. Then I guess we ask for a motion to table. This item I and item J? Okay, thank you. I was not aware of that, so I appreciate your update there. Okay, thank you.
Do we really need to table them or just skip them and go on?
They're on the agenda. You have to address them if they're on the
Oh,
agenda.
okay. Excuse me.
Mr. Mayor,
Proper form.
Ms. Hamburg,
I'm going to make a motion to table the consent to an agreement for annexation for the Kilgore property.
I'll second.
motion by Ms. Hamburg, a second by Mr. David. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. The next one's a roll call vote, but I think if you're tabling it, we don't need to do the roll call. Is that correct? Okay. I wanted to make sure that was right. Okay. So item J is also same subject. So
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Smith.
I'd like to make a motion to table item J and ask for advice from council on whether to pursue an annexation in this matter or a different one.
Okay, motion by Mr. Smith and second by Mr. David. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Well, now we are at item 12A. So we have a requested city appearance with Garver Engineering. So Mr. Ken Lee and Chris Bohm are here to talk about the 45th Street update. Is this going to be a long presentation or 5 minutes?
Well, good evening, council, and I'll try and keep it under an hour. So, no, we'll go through it pretty quickly here. I won't belabor it, and we'll go through it pretty quickly, and then you can ask questions after we get done. So, I'll go through. Ann asked us a couple weeks ago. We met for our kickoff meeting on the project to go through things, and she said it would be a good idea to come to council and kind of talk about where things are at. And we do have one specific item when we get towards the end. We'll be asking for some guidance on it. It won't require a motion or anything, but just we want to get a kind of a sense from the council on how you want us to proceed on it as much as anything else. Let me get this turned on. And so first thing about it is communication design is important. I know one of the criticisms or one of the concerns that was had in the past is there were some periods where decisions were being made, permits were being requested, and there wasn't enough communication. So the one thing that we've committed to Ann is that you will get a monthly update every month from us. We'll come up and we'll at least give you an update on what's going on once a month. Hopefully it'll be 5 minutes most months, so it'll be pretty short, but we'll do that. We'll meet with city staff on an as-needed basis, and in particular, the week before we have a council meeting, we'll go through everything and make sure we're covering the appropriate items. Lessons learned from Woodlawn construction will be incorporated into traffic control. There's been a lot of frustration with that, so we understand that. And then we'll work with some local contractors to discuss phasing on the project. And we have some other ideas on what might help construction go more quickly. So we do have a commitment to communicate during construction. There we go. So just talking about the design concept first, kind of where our starting place from where we're going to be working from, some of the base assumptions that we're expecting. And obviously traffic studies and those kind of things will change things, but we're expecting that the base assumption is a signalized intersection. Oliver, the roundabout's going to be considered as an alternate design. So when we're looking at this, we'll look at it both ways, but our base assumption is a signalized intersection. Based on previous roads in the area, we're expecting a 3-lane design on this roadway. At this point, we're planning on providing 5 lanes in case, 30 years down the road and the road still has a design life because it's concrete in the intersection. If the road does get expanded, you have it. Plus, it makes for nice XL and decel lanes out of the intersection. So that's a base assumption. And then we're providing decel lanes you can see the list of the intersections along the route that we're going to be putting in decel lanes into neighborhoods to promote safer people turning off the road. They'll give a place to get off the roadway. So just some base assumptions that we're having on this. And okay, so I went twice there. So utility coordination, that's going to be important. We're doing our survey right now. We'll get maps from everybody. We're working on that right now. Prior to field check, we're going to start having interactions with the contractors. We'll do meetings a month before any field check or office check or any of the submittals. We'll make sure to meet with the utility companies. Some of the early design discussions, and these are things that are going to be driving our concept phase as far as what we have to get accomplished before we turn a concept over to you to work on. And one of them is Stuckey sidewalk coordination. The good news on that is I spoke with Shane Shoemaker with USD 259. He said he knows Ty. We're going to meet with him in 2 weeks to talk about Stuckey. He's already expressed interest in USD 259 providing financial support to help on the project. So I haven't talked to Wichita yet, but USD 259 definitely wants to see that sidewalk built if they can have it. So Ann and I and he are going to walk the site here in a couple weeks. Kruger First Homeowners, go back here. Up on this top one, there was an existing frontage road proposed. You can see in my schematic I prepared, that's one option on how to provide access to those folks. We're going to have a meeting with them to talk about it. So I haven't had a chance to facilitate that meeting, but that's going to be an early on meeting. And what we're going to do here, we're not going to talk to the property owner here until we've actually evaluated a pond to see if there's enough capacity to really make a meaningful difference on the project. So I'll be doing that here in the next few weeks. And I've had preliminary conversations. I don't have a picture of Sunrise there, but I've had preliminary conversations with Sunrise. Dr. Lindsted's out of town right now, so I'm trying to work into a meeting to talk about the relocation of the entrance on the project to line up with Edgemore and the crosswalk and construction concerns. So we're working on all those things already. Right now, the biggest thing we're running into, and this is kind of where the decision is going to come in tonight, is a critical path item, which is a traffic study. When we originally proposed this, we were going to do the traffic study to start with. Things change as you go through construction projects, and we're in a situation where we knew we were going to have limited travel through there. We thought it was going to be one way. Well, now we've got a situation where currently 45th is closed, and as soon as 45th reopens, Woodlawn's going to be closed. So we're not going to get anything close to a decent traffic count on the road in the near future. So our solution that we're going to propose, there's two options we can do. One is to do a partial design now and do a traffic study in September after the roads open. Option two is to just go ahead and plow ahead, do the study. It's not going to give us good data, but we can calibrate it, we can work it through, but it's not going to be great. We're recommending to hold off on the traffic study, and traffic will be two-way on Woodlawn in September. School will be back in session. That we would recommend waiting until the first week, so you've had a week or two for traffic to normalize with school. And that'll give us the best information. And the good thing for the city is it's going to save money, because our traffic design, our study included doing extra calibration. It included extra traffic counts. So if we wait, we can go ahead and get started on the eastern 2/3 of the project. And that's what we would prefer to do, is do everything except for the intersection. Go ahead and get plowing through, start our design, but hold off, get the traffic study done later, and that'll save the city about $12,000, because we can reduce the traffic counts by 7,000. We can reduce our fee by 5,000, because it's less work for us to do that. And what that would result in is the plans would be to KDOT in December 2024. So running through that real quickly, design concept to you in May. We would go ahead and at that time in June, in the first meeting of June, we do a workshop first, and then we do a council meeting where you could then approve going ahead with the concepts if you liked what we had put together. Then June to the fall, we would be started on our design. We would start our traffic counts and have it completed and presented to council on October 3rd. And then we would go to our public engagement, which would be mid-October 2023 for the meeting. We would do a virtual open house for 4 to 5 weeks, which would allow the public time to give comments, with the final council presentation where we present the findings from that open house. And that would be the meeting where you would basically be deciding roundabout versus signalized based on the information provided. And then submittal schedule, that would mean field check. Since we'd already have most of the plans done, we'd still be able to turn in plans 2 months later in late January 2024. And I won't read every one of these off, but the long story short is plans done in December 24, out to bid in January 25, and bidding in February of 25. So that's kind of what we're thinking if we go with option A. Option B, again, things have changed since our proposal was done. I wanted to point out that this isn't unusual when you have a project like this. When you have complicating factors like railroads and those kind of things, schedules move around. So this isn't anything that I would lay at the feet of anybody. It just happens. But this would be the least accurate data. It would require extra calibration. We had budgeted that in, but this is going the other route gives us an opportunity not to take that extra fee. And because Woodlawn is close to that, the difference, remember I said December 24, it's October 24 on this. So it's 2 months sooner if we go with option B. And we would do the traffic study. We'd start that sometime next month. We'd give you the design concept about the same time as before. But the difference is we'd be starting the public meetings a lot earlier, and we'd have our final concept approved in July, which would lead to field check in November rather than in January like we were proposing before. So it's 2 months difference is what we're proposing on it. And you can see their final plans in October 2024. And depending on the holidays, it would bid in December 24 or January 25. So the actual bid date, because of holidays, may only be 1 day, 1 month different. Real quickly, so again, the December 24, October 24, you save $12,000. This is the more accurate, gives us the best data to make our decisions with. We recommend going with option A, which is waiting on the study. We can go ahead and facilitate and get a lot of our work done in the meantime. But we wanted to get kind of your feel for it so city staff can take your kind of thoughts and move ahead with it. Jackie can opine whether or not we need to have a motion on it, but we're just kind of looking for a feel as much as direction on this. When we talked with Ann, she felt like this is something you'd want to have an opportunity to speak on, as opposed to us just, the amounts are small enough, we could just do it through city staff, but she felt like it would be better to give you that opportunity to hear it and have an opinion on it. So, and
I
we'll,
had one point.
okay, go
if I
ahead.
may, Ken, and on back one slide.
Okay.
Waiting to the fall to do the traffic study when the intersection's open also gives time for other
Oh, yeah.
traffic operations for Integra, looking at the traffic patterns for that driver of traffic to be incorporated into this as well. So it also give us some time to consider that at the intersection with a roundabout, and then any other implications it could have on 45th Street North. I just wanted to make sure that. point
Yeah,
was made.
So-
and that's a great point, because I know that the city's talking about maybe doing some additional traffic studies as well anyway, that in other areas, so that may all be tied together.
So just a couple of clarifications to make sure I'm understanding. You're going to design all the sewer work and on the utility work and all that for a 5-lane, but looking at road at 3-lane regardless of traffic study or before traffic study, right? So the traffic study won't affect that. That's already gonna be part
Correct.
of your
Those
design.
kind of relocations and those things we would do. The traffic study wouldn't impact any of
Right.
that. We would be able to get it going on that. Frankly, it's 99% likely that it's going to be a 3-lane roadway. When you look at the 37th, when you look at Woodlawn, it's a very low risk assumption to go with it's going to be a 3-lane. It would be different. It would be unusual for it not to be with everything else going on. I will say that the one slight risk, which was alluded to with Chris's comment, is if during the process of doing the study for Integra, something was found different, that might require a reset of thinking. But unfortunately, they have a lot of work to do, and I don't think we want to delay the project waiting for that. So I think everything points to a 3-lane. So we're comfortable with proceeding ahead if you are.
But the same is true on roundabout versus signaled intersection without, I mean, you really won't have all that design work done anyway at that point, right?
Yeah, and that's why we want to hold off on actually doing the intersection design, and that's why Chris alluded to that, is it would be best to have those other studies kind of complete, to have that as part of that picture on that intersection, because you want that full picture when you're making that kind of a long-term permanent decision. You want to make sure you're making the right one.
But I think option A is the right one, but I'm want to hear from council as
I was
well.
going to say that too. I think we should wait on the traffic study until things are somewhat normal
Yeah.
and just do it right the first time.
Does the 2-month difference have any implications on the WAMPO schedule?
I don't think it would. The issue with the WAMPO thing is when we get funding, and that's the crystal ball we don't know right now anyway. Unless Ann's got some insight, I don't know.
No, the mayor is correct. At this point, 45th Street is not scheduled is not programmed for any funding right now. We're first in line, but not programmed yet. So those requests for projects will be coming out within this year. So delaying it by 2 months is not going to change anything with the WAMPO schedule, since we are not currently programmed for funds.
That makes sense to me. And I think I'm in favor of waiting for the good traffic study.
Well, and to add to her point, it's tentatively scheduled for 2025, if I recall correctly. It's tentatively, which means as long as it's bid in 2025, it has the same priority.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dean.
I have a question, kind of piggybacks on the question about utilities in a 5-lane versus 3-lane. So like on Woodlawn, the utility relocate work was a separate job, separate contract. It happened ahead of the roadway project. Do you guys envision that happening? And the reason why I'm asking that is that work that can proceed in sometime in 2024, even though we're going to get behind on getting the road project bid and out for construction? Is that something that you guys are considering?
So my take on that
As a
would be
suggestion, or-
absolutely, you would want to be looking at sometime in 2024 because those are non-participating items. KDOT won't pay for them. They'll have to be done in advance. But it would be one of those things, if you started that, we'd want to know that we were in the WAMPO, that we had been selected for that WAMPO funding, and that should be a foregone conclusion by the time we get to that point. But yeah, it would be a good idea to look at having some of the utility relocation plans done probably middle of next year would be a great idea.
Yeah, I only mention that because I know a lot of people are frustrated with Woodlawn, but having done the utility work before, did allow traffic to flow somewhat normally during that time. And although it seems like it's been forever, it could have been a lot longer had that not happened ahead of time. Like you said, it's non-participating anyway, so it just makes sense to move forward with it. But and then the other question I had was the traffic being interrupted after 45th open. I assume you're referring to the 3-month estimated timeline that Woodlawn's gonna be closed because the railroad work.
Yeah.
And that's having
combination
a
of the
big
different
impact on
items,
your
yeah.
study.
Yeah.
Okay. I figured that was the case. And that's really all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're not taking a vote on this, but if anybody else wants to weigh in on it, a direction for Garver, please do so.
I agree with waiting too. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. I agree with waiting for the right data. So
Okay.
support that.
One last thing I will mention is we are looking at ways, and I got to give Tyler the credit for it. He's the one, when we were doing our interview, who talked about shifting that intersection north. The one thing we are going to look at to try and expedite construction of the intersection is the cost of acquiring the property versus the time it takes to do the work. We're going to work with some contractors to get some cost estimating to see if there's a cost acquisition of the property, whether or not that would allow us to construct part of the intersection to the north while the other one remains open to minimize the impact on the traveling public. So that's one of the things we are going to be looking at as part of the project, is that cost benefit of buying that property on the north side versus leaving it where it is and knowing that it might be a little bit longer delay during construction. So we're going to do some investigating with contractors on that. So
Purchasing those easements, if I remember on the Woodlawn project, we have to do that before contract letting too.
yeah,
Is
that would
correct?
need to be done in advance as well. So that'll be something we'll be doing that as part of our design concept phase. We'll be having some of those discussions to try and get some opinions of cost on that. And we'll probably have to work with some folks to get with Ann to get those costs. Again, we just want to do a benefit cost analysis to see if it makes sense.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or discussions on this project? Appreciate the update and appreciate the opportunity to give you our feedback. Thank you. So next item on the agenda is executive session, and I don't have a need for one. Does anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, I think it would be, I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session for the sole purpose of the discussion of subject of attorney-client consultation regarding contractual obligations pursuant to the KSA 754319 exception for attorney-client privilege, and invite in the city manager and the city attorney for a period of 15 minutes, with the open meeting resuming at 9:10 in council chambers.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Ms. Hamburg. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're in executive session for 15 minutes. Okay. Okay, we held an executive session. No binding actions were taken. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. So item 14A is a monthly workshop, March 14th, 2023 at 6:30 PM. I want to make sure that works for everybody. And our city manager has on the agenda street, water, stormwater, and sewer CIP projects for 2023 staffing and utilities. So I think it's going to be a really long meeting because, but I do want to ask something to be added to, and don't puke all over this, please. But I would like to have a brief discussion about an idea a citizen requested that the city pay to have addresses painted on the curb in front of all residences as a one-time option, or not an option, but as a one-time deal. And I have no idea how much that might cost. So I'd like to just some ballpark numbers and see if it's significant or if it's something we want to do or not do or whatever. So I think years ago, there was somebody came through, like maybe Boy Scouts, and did some of that work on some curbs, but I don't know. Anyway, if it makes sense, I'm not saying it does, but something to think.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
as part of that discussion, we probably need to be advised by our attorney on the legality of those numbers. I think I have heard some rumors that technically those aren't allowable for some reason or other.
Well,
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So maybe our code needs to be changed as part of this, or we probably need to make sure we understand the legal side of that engagement. I like them. I think they're great to have on the curbs. We just need to make sure we've adjusted everything necessary to do that.
Okay. That's a good input. I think that's most appropriate.
I don't know
I don't know
if
if
Jackie
Jackie
can
has
get
time
that
to
in.
get that done, but-
It may stay over.
It came up. Yeah, it came up. So I'll pull together what I have, but it came down to fire department issues. Like it can't be the official address like, because the fire
okay.
department needs to have an official. And then the other aspect that I'm remembering was the nuisance piece. Like we would need our nuisance code updated because what is, chipping, damaged paint, just ensuring that that's never a nuisance on the city's curb. So that's becomes an issue, a maintenance issue that it has to be, and then when you allow curb paintings, you need to think about, do you want your Wildcat on there? Well, then does that mean I get to put my whatever on there? And what the scope of what allowable paintings are? That's all fair for discussion, but it would definitely, it can be done. It would just have to be addressed through the nuisance code and through like certain limitations, I would think.
And my point of view is that we need to address the nuisance code issue, whether or not the city in any way enables the painting of the numbers, because people are doing this anyway. And I imagine we're not ticketing or enforcing. And this is another one of those areas where if you have laws that don't make sense, we need to fix them.
Yeah. Very good point. Surely that never happens. Okay. So any other issues that we need to address at the workshop?
Mr. Mayor, I don't know that we're getting a full one for next week, but I want to bring this up now while it's fresh on my mind. I'm sure you guys have noticed, or I live on the far west side. I take Oliver up and down. There is trash all over the place. Saturday being a beautiful day, I was going for a walk anyway and just took a trash bag and went from 48th to not even to 45th, and it was full. People are tossing. It's. I get we live in a windy place and trash gets away, but people are throwing beer cans, liquor bottles, fast food stuff out. So I would like to have a discussion with maybe Chief, two parts. Chief about his appetite for ticketing and that sort of thing, if that seems reasonable to him, and maybe looking at having the city. I don't want it to turn into a big production of adopting a road and putting up signs, but community organizations volunteering or school clubs or people that need community service hours. It's looking really trashy over there. So just want to bring that up and kind of think about solutions. Thank you.
Well, thank you for bringing that up because we've seen some issues and it might be time to look at it again. So, okay, great. Anything else? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Welch, second by Mr. David. Call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are